Hi, welcome to my Arts podcast. I'm so happy that you're joining us, and I know all the beautiful, amazing, inspiring things you do, but I'm sure a lot of other people would get so inspired. So let's begin with introductions.
Yeah.
Tell us more about you.
Oh, well, thank you for the very kind and warm welcome. So currently I'm the founding dance teacher at City Arts and Sciences Academy, which is located in Lynn, Massachusetts. Some other things I do to support the school, because it's our very first year, is advise student council. I'm also doing our cheer team. I run the Black Affinity space, a lot of our DEI and YPI work. And then also I'm on the instructional leadership team. And then in my free time, I teach at one of the local studios, Cultura Latina Dance Academy, and also continue to take classes on my own, both in Providence and in Boston area. Before coming to the role, I was at Hugsy, and before coming to Hugsy, I was at Brown, and I feel like in both of these spaces, I was really thinking a lot about dance education. I was like constantly working part-time as a teaching artist at studios and nursing homes and museums and community centers, just really thinking about how do we increase access to dance education, and also like what does high quality dance education look like?
Yeah, and wow, I'm just amazed at the diverse, rich experiences which you have, and I'm so excited to like dig into it.
Yeah.
But before we dig into all the beautiful things you do, I would love to know what's your first memory of movement or dance, so that made you feel like, oh, this is it. I love doing this, or something like that.
Yes. My first memory, I feel like the memory that was like, this is it, or slightly different. My very first memory is Angelina Ballerina, the little mouse with the tutu, because that's what I watched, and I was like, that like put me in ballet class, Mom. That's what I saw that made me want to dance. But then I was probably started dancing when I was 2 or 3, when I was maybe closer to middle elementary, 8 or 10. I went to go see an Alvin Ailey performance. And I think that's when I saw that, I was like, this is what I want to do. And like do it forever. So it was Angelina Ballerina that made me want to dance, but I feel like it was watching Alvin Ailey that made me keep wanting to dance.
That's amazing that it came from like watching and seeing people.
Yeah.
And do you think like there was anybody who kind of nurtured this for you, or like a mentor or somebody who kind of gave you that confidence to keep on working in this field?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think when I think about where I am now, because I consider myself like both a dancer and educator, there's definitely some people where they mentored my dance training, and other people where they mentored my training as a dance educator. And so growing up, I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Definitely like both the studios I went to had a really like high quality dance technique and nurtured me to grow as an artist, but in ways that I thought were holistic. So it wasn't just like, okay, you need to point your toes and stretch your legs here. It was also like, if you rotate your legs this way, you are forcing your turnout. That is bad for your body. So holistic in the sense they thought about our health, or holistic in the sense they tried to talk about dance history. And so I was really appreciative of that like both the studios I grew up in Michigan nurtured me as a dancer in that way. Then between 9th to 10th grade, I moved and went to a boarding school. And it's funny because now when I say boarding school, everyone's like, they like think of just, I feel like these elitist places. And while they are that, like my boarding school was pretty diverse. About 50% of students were students on aid, and 50% of students were students of color. And I say that because when I got to dance class at boarding school, it was like very different, just in terms of like the prior exposure to dance that I had versus some other students had. So in that space, like even though I was practicing my technique, it didn't feel like I always had like pushes to, grow like and do harder technique. But on the flip side, I feel like I was forced to grow in other ways. So in this space, I think there was a bit more room for like creativity and choreographing. Whereas a lot of times in the studio environments in Michigan, love the studios, but if you're gonna like go to a dance studio and compete, it is kind of just like, you see this, you do this. Whereas in boarding school, that wasn't really the purpose of dance. And so I grew as like an artist in the sense of like making choreography, doing really interesting things, dancing to spoken word, or using dance to express ideas about technology and society. But then the other way I grew in boarding school, and it's thanks to like 2 dance educators there, is that I grew and realized that like I like teaching dance. And so a lot of times they like made me a dance captain, not only because like I knew the routines, but also because I was willing to help. Okay, this is count 1, this is count 2, this is count 3. And then I feel like I continued to have a lot of people who mentored me, both as dance educators and just general educators, as I went on to both my undergrad and graduate studies.
And yeah, because you dived into a little bit, I'm curious, like how did this shift happen from being a performer and to becoming a full-time like dance educator?
Yeah.
Like I know you do both now, but what was the inspiration and what was the motivation to do that?
Yeah, I think it was a couple of things. Like I mentioned, when I went to boarding school,
Yeah.
there was a change where I realized, okay, like not everyone had access to dance growing up the way I did. So I think that was part of it, seeing that like how access to dance varied was part of why I'm like, okay, I want to do work that increases access to dance. And then it was doing kind of the dance captain things where I realized not only do I want more people to have dance, but also that like I like teaching and sharing dance. And I think it's actually similar to performing. Like I like performing because I like sharing with my friends and family, like, okay, like this is my story, this is what I'm doing. And I almost feel a similar sense when I am teaching. Like I am sharing my passion for dance. And so I don't think of them as separate for that reason. Like they're both sharing your art form. But I also don't think of them as separate because oftentimes I feel like what makes me a good teacher is the fact that I'm still performing. Because I can tell my students about like, I know it is scary to perform because I'm still actively performing. I know it is scary to take this risk because I'm still taking this risk myself.
Yeah, and I think that is such a key, which I feel like we kind of separate these lives, and like how you say it's like intertwined is so like essential, which a lot of people, even like educators, forget, who are even artists. Like like that's the core of you also, and it's amazing. And why do you believe like dance is so essential today?
Yeah,
And not just in a outcome or like a performance, but just in life.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question given what I'm doing now. Because currently my role as founding dance teacher, I love it, but dance is essentially PE, and so for most students, they are not taking dance in hopes of taking future dance classes. They are taking dance to get their physical education in. So then I'm like, okay, some of these students, they're only going to be here for one trimester. They're only seeing me from September to December. Like, what are the things I want them to take away from dance? And I think one idea is just like the power of movement. So yes, you might not move and like your tombe padre glissade jeté and like be a ballerina, but like the importance of like movement in your life to stay healthy, especially because the school schedule, I love that it's long because in order for me to teach a proper dance class, like I need them to be able to warm up, do the thing and cool down. But on the flip side, when it's like you are sitting in a class for 70 minutes, that's a long 70 minutes for your body. Like you should be getting up and like taking a stretch break. And so one, I hope I bring the idea that movement is important into the students' lives, especially in an environment where dance is like your only movement class. It's like PE. And currently, like students do not have recess. So yeah, one, the power of movement. But I also think a lot of times, like there are life skills in dance that are just important life skills. It's not just important like to have this as a dancer. It's important to like be a good human in society. And so when I think about my first unit, which was all about like play, and we took games and made them into dance. So how do you take something like rock, paper, scissors and make it full body, like rock, I don't know, paper, and then scissors? And that idea, I think it helps students like, one, how do I be a creative, which is part of kind of CASA's mission statement. But then two, if you think about rock, paper, scissors, it's a partner game. So how do I learn to like work with others? And so in addition to power of movement, in my first unit, I was thinking a lot about like creativity, collaboration, and then also reflection. Because like at the end of the day, I asked students, okay, like why did you choose this for your rock? And then in my second unit, we talked a lot about social dance and how dances can be, and this is I feel like an elementary school framework, but how dances can be either a mirror or a window. So I teach predominantly like Latina students, and I'm African American. So I showed them at first African American social dances, and I showed them videos. We like talked about the importance of social dance, and I said like for me this is a mirror. Like this is what I grew up with. Like I grew up doing the Dougie, doing these line dances. For some of you, this might be a window. You get to look in and see another culture. But then I like flipped it. I taught things like bachata and salsa. And I am very much like beginner to intermediate in those things, but I knew that's the student's culture. So I explained to them, like for me, this is a window. This is for me to like learn more about you all and how to best support you as your teacher. But for many of you, this is your mirror. Like this is what you do like with your cousins at birthday parties. And so I think in that sense, it was dance being about identity and community. Like how do we learn to like respect other cultures? How do we learn about other cultures' history and like what like helps connect people? So then in that sense, like my unit 2, it wasn't just movement, creativity, reflection, which again are all still important and all still happening. But now I'm getting kids to think about how does dance and art more broadly help us learn to respectfully reflect on our own culture and connect to other cultures. Then in unit 3, we thought a lot about like dance style. So that's more of like your traditional dance class. Like we did ballet and we did hip hop. And the idea there was being that like, one, if you want to keep dancing, here's what you might do. But 2, even if you don't want to keep dancing, like we are an art school, you should still have some like dance vocabulary, because at the end of the day, even if you're not in dance, the dancers might do things in the community that represent CASA. Like they might perform at City Hall, they might perform at CASA's birthday party, which is an annual event. And so then I think for students, it's this idea of even if something, is not something I want to do or like, how do I like respectfully like still learn about it and care about it? So I think a lot of different reasons dance is important. Like yes, movement is important and like kids need to move to be healthy, but also dance and the arts can teach so many other life skills.
Yeah, that is so interesting, and like you kind of articulate it so well. And I'm curious to know like if you could share like stories from students where you felt like dance is such a great way to express, and like they used dance as a way to kind of express an identity or a question or a feeling or just anything which was maybe not easy for them to say verbally, and like how did you felt like dance provided them that space?
Yeah, I think two initial thoughts came to mind. Was that one, for some students, yes, dance was a platform where they could say things that they might not have said without dance. But then 2, I think dance is a platform or class where students who might get like typecast a certain way because of behaviors they have, like this student like is not a good student, which is not true. They're just maybe better at certain things than others, and they're also growing as a student. Some students who maybe get typecast a certain way, it was really nice to see them in dance because it allows people to see them in a different light. So what I mean by the first example of like students saying things they might not have said to me, if not in dance class, when we did that first unit, dance games, the very first game we did was the echo game. And so what happens is I say something and everyone in the circle has to repeat it. We started off real easy. Just say your name. You all know your name. So if I say Jada, you say?
Nanvi.
Or well, you repeat me first. So I say Jada.
Jada, Nanvi.
Nanvi.
Okay.
Great. And then we did it again. And I said, I want you to think this was the 9th grade classes. I want you to think about your time at CASA so far. Like take one word to describe your time at CASA. And I give them 30 seconds to think. And there was a wide range of words. And I don't know if students felt empowered because it was just one word. It wasn't a full sentence. But I heard things like boring.
Boring, exciting.
Excited. Opportunity.
Enthusiasm.
Yeah, so I heard words like that. And then what you do is you take your CASA word and you make a pose for it. So if my time at CASA is boring, maybe it's this. If my time at CASA is opportunity, maybe it's this. I'm looking at the opportunity of the snowfall.
I was like, we might have to move inside now.
But the point being is I think because it was one word, because that one word became a pose, students were very honest about their experience at CASA. And I'm not sure if they have that level of honesty and vulnerability in their other classes. But then the second idea I was talking about is there's some students who maybe, aren't excelling in our year-long classes like humanities and math, but they do really great in dance. And it was really powerful to see these students doing well. So I think about certain students in Unit 2, for social dance, their final project was they had to do a presentation, but then they also had to make choreography. So for example, one student, he really liked when I taught line dance. And he decided to do this whole project on the Tamiya line dance. And I allowed students to either be a soloist or work in groups. So this first student I'm an example of is a soloist. And so he had this beautiful PowerPoint presentation where he talks about like the history of line dance. Now this particular line dance was a country line dance, but then was kind of claimed by Black communities as like a soul line dance. He talks about why it's important to express Black joy. He talks about all the different like dance moves in it, like how here's a pivot, here's where they change walls. And he's able to like show a video, which is his choreography, and point out in the video, okay, here are the dance like things that are happening. And this is a student who like, had maybe a few like in class suspensions is like seen as maybe not always focusing in class, but he was like very focused and present and happy to share about his social dance. And it was similar. Another student, this is a student who was in a group. He's like, having a bit of trouble, like staying in class, interacting with peers in class, but is an incredibly bright student, and he's also incredibly passionate about dance. And so it comes time for his social dance presentation, and he's up there, he's telling me about the dance's history, he's like showing me his like cute little handshake with the fingers, he's even teaching it to some of the guests who visit, and he is like crushing it with these Philly dance moves. And I told him, like, one of the only things I took points off for is like, because you didn't have a song. Because for me, in dance, like dance and music are so intertwined that I asked students, you need to have a song that matches your dance style. And I said, I took a few points off because, you didn't have your song, but he's like, can I still turn in the song and get the credit? And so to see students that enthusiastic about learning who aren't always that comfortable in learning environments is really powerful too.
Oh my god, that is so beautiful. Like, it makes me like feel so inspired, and like also see the beauty of like how arts provides that space, which like quote unquote academically, which people believe is like the subjects and not dance. And like I think that this narrative of like how dance is as much part of learning as anything else, and like arts is so like important, like which most of the people forget. And I'm curious to know, like, you, because as you also work in democratic spaces and like voices and student voices, and CASA also supports that creativity and student voices. I'm curious to know, like, hear from you, like, how does dance support that spaces for like questioning to be in a space which is like more democratic? And like, what are your thoughts about this word itself when it comes to with your art form?
Yeah, I think, as I kind of mentioned with the very first unit, like dance, play, a key part of both democracy and dance is the collaboration idea. And so, like, what I am hoping is students who learn to like collaborate with their partner for rock, paper, scissors, or collaborate with their group to make their dance presentation are realizing that like what we are doing at CASA is also inviting collaboration. We're inviting student voice into designing our bathroom policy, or we're inviting student voice into like redesigning our Wednesday projects. And so I think both the art form and democracy really rely and thrive on like collaboration and student voice, and that's one of the ways that they go.
Yeah, which is also very interesting, and makes me think about like your principles as a teacher. Like, what do you value more in your classrooms, and how do you create spaces for students to take risks, or being open to share like freely like what it means? And I think that also connects to the whole idea of like being a democratic space, and like how do you kind of practice that in your classroom?
Yeah, I think in terms of like making sure students feel comfortable to collaborate, there's a number of different things. One, just like how you kind of set up the classroom space. So I was very intentional at the beginning of my classes of doing my best to have student voice in like designing my community norms. And so like what we did is like we had our first dance class where I was like, okay, like here are some ideas in dance. Like, formation is the way we're organized in a space. Like, we're gonna do this four corners game and be in a formation. And every time I kind of upped it so they were dancing a bit more. First time, just go to your corner and talk to someone. Like, second time, go to your corner and like find a pose. Third time, go to your corner and make a group pose. So I was kind of making them dance a little more each time. But then after that, day two, I was like, okay, you got a little bit of a dance class. You got me lecturing. I did my dance teacher journey. You got to move. You learned about formations. You learned about poses and tableaus. Like, now what do you think needs to happen for dance class to be successful? So then I'm getting student voice in. Like, it needs to be a judgment-free zone. We need to make sure like there's no food and drink to like keep the studio clean. And so now that like students are building kind of the classroom community and norms with me, and then on top of that, it wasn't just like, oh, that one day and done. Like, I kept having open dialogue with them. So the first day they added all their norms on Post-its. And then I took their Post-its, kind of grouped it together, and I came up with a list. And then I shared with the class, like, okay, based off your Post-its, here's your list. Like, would you say this is true? Is there anything we're missing? And then students could go back and add to it. And then once we had like our finalized list that was edited as a community, I put it on a poster. And for attendance that day, when I called your name, you were going to come up and sign the poster because like you're agreeing, like this is the classroom community we're creating. So I think part of it was like how we set up the space, but even in that setup, you still have to be intentional about how you continue to like include students in conversations. And so like, again, going back to maybe something like the Echo game, like that particular day, part of the reason like why I gave like think time about it was I knew students might not be comfortable like either one, like speaking and just their voice being the only one heard, or two, I knew students might not be comfortable like posing and being the only one posed. So I gave them some think time so they could find the words and find the pose that would be comfortable for them. And it also is like the way I give feedback to them too. Like it's more of this like gentle push, like, oh, I actually like this crossed arm pose, but is there another body part we could cross? Like, can we cross our legs as we cross our arms? Or, oh, like I like your shrug, because you're right, CASA is confusing. But is there a way we can make your shrug more interesting by like tilting it or like changing the level with it? And so I think it's not just like the first conversations you have, it's continuing to give students that space to process and think in those like gentle nudges to realize like, okay, this is a space that's like welcoming for you and where you can collaborate.
Wow, like listening to me makes me feel like, oh my god, I wish I can be in your class. I think because you are trying to create the safe space, because I have never like professionally like trained in dancing, but I love dancing. Like I enjoy it, just makes me joy, and I don't have to like think about what I'm doing, and I really love that. And I don't feel like a lot of educators create that space of like non-judgment, and like this is not like, oh, you have to be this perfectionist and performer, but there is so much of like backlog work and so much of like thinking, like brain work which goes behind it, which we often like miss out because we only see the bright starry things, but not see the skill development which is going on in the background. And I would love to hear more about you, like you learned what you feel like are the skills which gets developed, which is kind of useful for students in life, and also like if you have learned something from students while working with them about any of the things.
That's a good question. I mean, I'm learning from my students every day.
Any particular incidents?
I think something I'm like constantly learning from my students is I guess just like how to best work with them. And so even though I like try to create my classroom environment in a way where there's room for collaboration, I think another part of like being able to collaborate with them is like adjusting my plans like based off the class and their personality, or based off how like students are responding to something. So like I have 3 6th grade classes and 2 9th grade classes, and for example my 2 9th grade classes are very different. Like one is smaller and they're maybe quicker to like pick up the like steps, but sometimes I think struggle with like maybe being like respectful in class. So with them it's like I have to have like clear expectations of like how we're doing this activity respectfully, whereas with my other 9th grade class they're bigger and they actually get like really excited. It's amazing. There's like 30 of these 9th graders and like all 30 of them will be on the dance floor like doing their plies at once, but because they're a bigger class and like I try to hear every student's voice, it sometimes just takes longer because they're a bigger class. It also takes longer because I have more people who like English is their second or third or fourth language, and so part of it too is just like not just like learning from my students, but learning like how each class environment is different. But I think another way too, when I think about like learning from my students and adjusting to make it collaborative, is that I mentioned I have 3 6th grade blocks. And block 1, because they're the first block, they're always kind of like my experimental block. And so sometimes I'll do something, I'm like, okay, I'm not doing it like that in block 2 and 3. Like the other day, when we did ballet, I was teaching them about the ballet position. So it's like, here is your first position, here is your second position, here is your third position, here is your fourth position. And I realized like most of these students have never done ballet. So even though I was there and like I made sure everyone like understood the position, the way I did the activity first was like, if you're on corner 1, you're doing position 1. If you're on corner 2, you're doing position 2. If you're on corner 3, position 3. If you're on corner 4, position 4. And I quickly realized with block 1 that even though I did my best to introduce it in like ways that fostered multiple kind of methods of interacting with it. Like you saw me do it, you heard my description, like I'll say them first, you're holding a beach ball, your feet are making a V. I'll like have them do it with me. So there was multiple things. There's like my visual, there's my verbal cues, and there's them actually trying it out. Like it's their first time. They were not remembering it when they got to their corner. So then by the time I got to block 2 and 3, I was like, okay, like we're doing the positions with each round. So like you do your circuit move, and then round 1, we're all holding first position. So it's both like learning from my students and I'm like, okay, like this class has this personality, but learning from my students, like, okay, if this didn't go well, in my first block, it might not go well in my second and third.
Yeah, and I think there's also so much of like vulnerability and problem solving with being able to okay, like this not working out, I'm going to change my technique.
Yeah.
I feel also a lot of people don't acknowledge that, and it's okay. I mean, I like people see that, oh, you are an expert, you have to get everything perfect, but that's not how it works with learning. And
Yes.
you know, it's like how we are like scaffolding, you're like constantly scaffolding this and you're constantly learning with. And I think that is such a beauty of like, as you're sharing, it's like, wow, like this is so important as an educator, and especially who work in arts, which is such a creative space, and it doesn't go the same way every day. It's like not like, you know, like to not be like, it's not like one way of calculating or two way of
Yes.
calculating. It's so much about like changing, and I feel that is also the power of arts and dance. And and that's amazing. And I also like think about like what kind of structural cultural challenges have you faced when you have to kind of vouch for expressive arts or like dance, and like
Yeah.
how does that, you know, it's not an extra thing than academics, as we always have these conversations. And like
Yeah.
how has it been for you, especially because you work in a stream integrated school?
Yes, that's a great question. And it's interesting because I think the challenges I have faced with expressive arts kind of have changed with like every space I'm in. Like I mentioned, now I'm in a school, but like before, I've been in studios, I've been in museums, I've been in community centers, I've been in nursing homes. But in the school environment I'm in, because we're a STEAM school, I think people are incredibly, supportive of the arts and very excited that dance is a part of how we're defining arts. Because we're a public school and like a low income district, one of the challenges is just like prior exposure to dance. And so I'm currently one of 3 like dance teachers in the district, and we're like the 4th largest district in Massachusetts. And so some of it is more so just like because dance hasn't happened a lot, and then dance hasn't happened in this way. It hasn't happened in a way where it's like integrated into STEAM and into PBL. It's just like sometimes people don't like know how to support the program. And I think like some maybe like tangible examples is like in terms of like dance curriculum. Like they're like, you can, go to this like prior teacher in the experience because she's like beautiful with dance curriculum, and she is. And I like learn a lot from her, but at the same time, dance in other schools is like more so your traditional elective, where it's like if you are taking dance, you are opting into this. Like, you are taking dance, you signed up for ballet, you signed up for hip hop. Whereas for me in this STEAM school, where the idea is everyone gets exposed to all the elements of STEAM before specializing, like not every student came to dance to take ballet. So I couldn't just say ballet day 1. I had to like do things like the games and social dance before I could get to ballet and hip hop. And so I think, yeah, big challenge is just there's not a lot of dance in the district, and then dance in the district is not happening in this PBL steamy way. And it's only challenging not because people aren't supportive, but just because there has to be some like additional education of like, okay, this is what dance is going to be in this space. That might not be happening with science, because like science has a set curriculum, and even though you're taking it and making it more project based, like at the end of the day, everyone knows that like this science experiment has to happen.
Yeah. That's so fair. And so like what would you say to somebody who wants to integrate dance, or like want to make dance more accessible, even though if they're not like a trained dancer, but just to bring that space or open up that space of co-learning with their students? Like,
Yeah.
what would you, or like if you have like any personal resources you have?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there are definitely ways that you can integrate dance into the classroom without being a dance expert. One of them I would just say is like movement breaks. Like I mentioned earlier, that dance is powerful because like kids need to move to like be healthy, to help them focus all the things. And you don't necessarily have to be a dance teacher or lead a movement break. Like you can just say, okay, pause class, like we're all gonna do this fun stretch, like cross your arms, like reverse it. Or you don't even necessarily have to lead the stretch. Like you could just put on like, okay class, we're gonna do this Just Dance YouTube video as our stretch break. And so one thing that I'm like, you do not have to be a dance teacher to have dance and movement is like the stretch breaks. But then the other thing, again, where it's like you don't necessarily maybe have to be a dance expert, is there are ways that you can allow students to process or learn things in a kinesthetic way. And again, you don't have to be a dance expert to do that. Like I think my administration did a great job of this. They were modeling for us as a teaching team how to do nows, and they were teaching an English class. But as you came in and like read the quote, you could, annotate the quote. You could make a drawing from the quote. You could make a dance move from the quote. And so even if there are options for like, okay, like you have this vocab word, how can you make a dance move from it? You don't necessarily have to be able to do the dance move to be like allow students the option to occasionally do a dance move to process some things.
Yes, I think that is so, like, it's like this balance between like freedom and structure, which kind of dance brings, like even if you're not an expert, and like you can still find ways to integrate it. And I think that is so like cool. And like, okay, now to like just you have spoken about this here and there, but like what do you think like dance teaches about being like human in like community, in conflict, and in connection? And like how do you see the power, if I have to say, of arts or like dance specifically in this spaces?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think in terms of what dance teaches us about being human, for me, it's both taught me like about myself and about others. And I think in terms of like what I learned about myself through dance, one, like I learned about myself in like a reflective way. So on days when I'm asking students like, oh, like let's say it's an emotional check-in. I say like, pose how you feel. If you're tired, pose like this. If you're excited, pose like this. If you're nervous, pose like this. I don't know. But sometimes when I'm asking students and myself to like move, and there's a prompt to it that's like tied to reflection, like tied to an emotional check-in, or like what is the story of this in your life, then it like allows me to check in with myself in a different way. But then I also think I learned about myself in dancing just in terms of like, what can I like physically do? If I can do a dance step that is super fast, or a dance step that is super flexible now that I'm like in my 20s versus not like a 16-year-old who regularly like is dancing every day. And I think it's similar for students. Like when I first teach something, like I taught this line dance boots on the ground. The footwork is very complicated and boots on the ground, but then the way I like broke down the footwork for them, they're like, oh, like I got it, and I didn't think you could get it. So there's that aspect too of dance where you like, I feel like sometimes when you like test your physical capacity, you become more confident, have more faith in yourself. But then also like dance helps me learn about others. Like what I was saying about windows and mirrors with social dance, like that is very much true to my practice as a dancer. Like even in the beginning of class when I'm stretching, if I'm taking someone's class, it's like someone I haven't taken class before, like when I am stretching, I very much have a sense of like what their body likes and doesn't like, and like the things it can do. And I'm like, okay, like me and my person are aligned, and like we both like stretching our legs in this way, but like maybe me and this person are different, or like my hips can't move that way. So I think sometimes like seeing other people's dance practices, it helps me think about like what similarity and differences we have as movement artists. And then I also think too, you just like learn about others, and like dance being a platform to share your stories. And so if you are sharing, like even my students who are presenting on social dance, if you are sharing your K-pop Demon Hunter social dance, like you were telling me, like that is part of who you are. Like you like K-pop culture and you like soda pop. And so dance helps you learn about others, because I feel like you can, through movement, see how you're similar and different from others, but then also like you are sharing your stories.
Oh, that is so beautiful, and you've articulated it so well about like this confidence and this like way of sharing stories, which is so like underrated. Like it's so underrated to like just know about other people's cultures, and I feel like that's what like dance or like different art forms are trying to bring, is like how do we have a space for conversation. And I think also with just like the world is like just understanding each other is so important. And the question you're sitting with right now.
I was telling you a little bit about this before we started, but one of my advisees, she told me that a student concern is that we are not learning, but she doesn't think that. She just thinks that at CASA we are learning in a different way. So now kind of the question I'm asking myself is how do we help students realize they are learning in this different way?
Wow, that is actually very powerful. I think 3 things which are part of your toolkit, a creative toolkit.
I think I've heard my creative toolkit. That's interesting. I think emotion. Like a lot of times when I'm like dancing, I'm like doing it to feel good. And like I want students to feel good in their movements too. So emotion, reflection, because I think that's an important skill for me, because I'm like thinking about like how am I growing as a dancer, how am I growing as a choreographer, how am I growing as an educator. But then it's a skill I want my students to have. And I think the other one we talk a lot about, and this like again applies to my students, is like just like effort or persistence. I think this is actually in like the studio like have this like toolkit. But effort, persistence, because I think for me, it's like how do I keep trying in ways that are sustainable, like to not burn out as an educator, but also for my students, how do you keep trying? Again, even if dance isn't your favorite class.
Love that. And lastly, why arts?
Ooh, why arts? Actually, so my dance educator mentor at boarding school, she had this sweatshirt that I loved, and I think it puts it real simply. It's like earth without art, because if you take away the art in earth, it's just ed. And so that's
I love that. It's so beautiful. Thank you so much for being part of this
Thank you
podcast.
for having
I feel
me.
so energized and inspired by listening to you, and I'm sure whoever listens to us is going to be so inspired. So thank you so much
Thanks
for
for
having
having
me.
me.
Yeah.